In this particular work, I focus on studying the gender stereotype in online social media. To be more specific, the question we empirically investigated is in the online social media, in online review community, when a female user is angry or anxious in expressing her opinions, will her comments be perceived as harmful as if she were a male? So we used different methods, including the controlled experiments, as well as a field study using the real-life Amazon reviews to find some empirical real-life evidences. As you can see from these two examples, the Andrew D is obviously a male user, the Jenny D is obviously a female user. Their comments are angry, and the way they express their emotion and the exact reviews are also the same. However, just because this gender difference in the review identity, we find that people prefer this Andrew D's comment. They find this Andrew D more credible, and therefore his comment is also more helpful. There has been a long history in psychology and management literature where scholars study the gender-related emotion expression. Let me give you one example. When a cat woman is angry, people's reaction would be, she's a woman, right? She's crazy. But if it is the Batman who got angry, in general, people's reaction would be, well, he is having a bad day. There must be something that can explain this anger. So this is how people review the emotion expression by different genders. The females, the women are thought relatively more emotional, and they are allowed to only express certain types of emotions, such as worries, happiness, and sadness, this powerless, weak emotion. And when the females, the women are emotional, the audience, the peoples around the women would consider this emotion coming from this woman being emotional. So it's an internal course. However, for the males, people are much more tolerant. They can express much stronger, powerful emotions such as anger, contempt, and pride. And when they express emotion, people tend to reason the emotions expressed by the males to be the bad experiences, those external causes. Based on these theories, in this empirical work, I focused on two discrete emotions, anger and anxiety. Anger is generally considered a male-only emotion. It is very powerful and strong. Anxiety is arguable. So what we wanted to do is we want to compare between these two emotions as well as comparing with the non-emotional expression. So the first thing that we did, as I briefly mentioned earlier, is we conducted a controlled experiment. We recruit the participants from Amazon MTurk. We ask all the participants to imagine that they're purchasing a laptop and they are going to read some reviews. And we randomly assign these participants into 4 different groups. And so we manipulate the gender of the reviewers. We also manipulate the emotion expression in the reviews. So some participants would see a review coming from a female reviewer with angry comments, and some participants would see the exact same angry reviews from a male reviewer, and the other participants would see non-emotional comments from a female or a male reviewer. So we have 4 different types, and we randomly assign our participants to one of them so that we can compare. And we do find that when a female user says something angry, people find that their comments are less helpful than the reviews expressed in a non-emotional way. But the male groups are a lucky category. people find that whether they are expressing anger or not, this does not impact the helpfulness of a male's comment. And during this experiment, we also asked some questions trying to understand why this anger expression makes such a difference. And we find that one of the, we call the mediator, that explains this relationship is when female expresses anger, people find this female less credible. While for the males, expressing anger does not hurt or impact the credibility of the male reviewer. And this credibility influences people's trust on the reviewer's words. From the control experiment, we find that the anger and the gender interact together to influence the perceived helpfulness of online user reviews, and here we term as electronic word of mouth. In this second study, the field study analyzing the Amazon user reviews, we introduce one more emotion, anxiety, highlighted by the red color here. We suspect that the anxiety expressed in the review comment would also have a differentiated impact on the helpfulness of user reviews because of the gender identity of the reviewer. In addition, we also introduce a moderator, average tone of the cohorts in this model. What it means is we think that this gender difference in the emotional reviews would also depend on what others have been saying about the same product. So these cohorts are referring to the other reviews on the same product. And the average tone is the average emotional tone of the cohorts. So this is our main model to examine in this field study. Let's take a look at our results on anger expression in review comment first. Overall, the results are pretty consistent with what we got from the first control experiments. For the females, ladies, your comments would still be considered less helpful than if you were non-emotional in expressing your comments, in describing your experiences. And this impact is valid even when the cohorts, the other people's, other reviewers are also expressing some negative emotions. So even if others are also talking badly about the product with the negative emotion, when we talk about the products in an angry way, or words would still be considered as helpful. For the males, males are still the lucky group. Regardless of what others have been expressing in their comments, males, you're free to express anger, and your comments would be considered as helpful as if you were non-emotional. Let's take a look at this anxiety piece. This one is new as it was not studied in the first control experiment. As I briefly mentioned, anxiety emotion is a little arguable to be either female or male related. It has its powerful, strong piece, which makes it closer to the male, but it also has its weak part, which can be related with the female stereotype. So let's take a look at what our empirical analysis show us. For the females, we find that what cohorts have been expressing have some impacts, but in a very small magnitude as compared to our anger case. And again, females, if you talk about your experiences or products in an anxious way with anxiety, your comments would still be considered less helpful than if you were talking about your experiences in a non-emotional way. For the male groups, again, male groups are even luckier here. We find that when the cohorts, when the other reviewers are expressing some negative emotion, the males who are expressing their comments in an anxious way, their comments are actually more helpful than their non-emotional reviews. So the anxiety expression in the review comments even increase the helpfulness of the male reviewers' comments when the others are also expressing certain types of negative emotion. So that's a little unexpected. We also discussed the potential reason, and we believe that this increased helpfulness might come from the nature of the anxiety. As when people are talking about their experiences or review the products in an anxious way, they likely will talk about the risk, the negative sides of the product or experience, and the negative information are normally considered more helpful. People are all risk averse. You want to avoid bad products and bad experiences. Anxious reviews also tend to have more rich product information, so it can be considered as more diagnostic. It might include the pros and cons and also have the warnings to the audience. So that could be some of the reasons that contributes to the increased helpfulness of a mail review comments. So this part concludes this published DSS work. It talks about the emotion expression by different genders and how this difference, this gender difference in emotion expression in online review community might impact the reviewer's comment helpfulness.